Hi Kings Mountain, it's Jim Palenick, your city manager again. We've got another update. Today our topic is electric utility rates. I have Chris Costner, our fiscal services officer, with me today. And we're going to talk a little bit about the city's municipal electric utility and how we establish rates. And in particular, something that's occurred recently, and hopefully we're going to bring you a little good news as well. So you may know that the city operates a municipal electric utility, and we maintain all of the system that brings you electric every day, the substations, the poles, the distribution, the transmission, all those things that ultimately provide reliable service that come to your home. But we buy the generation, and that generation, Chris, comes to us from a particular firm that produces it largely using natural gas. Is that correct?
That is correct. Carolina Power Partners. Many of you have probably noticed the plant just right off I-85. It's hard to miss if you're going 85 south.
There you go. So the thing is about natural gas that it can be somewhat volatile at times, so that if the cost of natural gas might be spiking either up or down, that can ultimately impact what we pay for the electric that we wind up providing to your home or to your business or to your industry. So when we step back, it was 2022 for the most part.
That's correct.
We were seeing some really significant increases in natural gas prices. And for a while, the city was essentially just kind of absorbing that. So while we were paying a certain amount, which was fluctuating upward with the prices of natural gas, we were not passing that along to our customers. But at some point in time, it became clearly obvious we couldn't do this anymore.
That's correct.
So at that point in time, tell us a little bit about sort of the mechanism that the city used to sort of try to adjust to that.
Yeah, at the point in time that we realized we just couldn't continue to absorb these costs, we instituted what we refer to as a PPA. It shows up on your bill as a fuel energy rider, but the more common industry term is PPA. What that means, it's a purchased power adjustment. As our cost goes up, the mechanism for adjusting your bill is through that PPA. That allows us to just put a surcharge based on what you use and apply. We can calculate that, apply that to your bill, and it gives us the opportunity to do that without having to totally revamp and rework our rate structure, which can be quite complicated. So it's a way for us to fairly quickly respond to changes in those purchase power costs without having to redo our rate structure in its entirety.
Yeah, so it's my understanding then that we made a few of these adjustments, and ultimately it was about November of 22 that the final and last adjustment, and that amounted to 3.25 cents per kilowatt hour.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So for each kilowatt hour of electric usage for anybody that was a customer of the city, it was adding 3.25 cents. So that was only intended to stay in place for as long as those escalating natural gas prices were continuing to impact the city's cost. We started watching that closely, monitoring it, and over the course of the last number of months and through this year, it became kind of clear, I think, that the rates had stabilized. They had gone down and they'd stabilized. So as a result, we knew that we could then bring a downward adjustment to this purchase power adjustment, the PPA. So, effective yesterday, which was a city council meeting on November the 9th, the city council formally adopted and approved a fairly significant decrease to that purchase power adjustment. So while it used to be 3.25 cents per kilowatt hour, Chris, what is it now?
It is now 2.25 cents, which is roughly a 30% reduction in that surcharge.
So Chris, if I'm a resident of Kings Mountain and I'm provided my electric by the city, give me a point of reference. What will this 1 cent per kilowatt hour decrease translate to in terms of like my normal monthly bill?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Of course, everybody uses a little bit. Some folks use a little more, some folks use a little less power. Kind of an industry standard when people start talking about bills and total bills is usually 1,000 kilowatts.
Okay.
So when you see on the news that, hey, Duke's average bill is going up X, that's normally based on 1,000 kilowatt monthly usage.
Uh-huh.
So assuming that assuming a resident uses 1,000 kilowatts on a monthly basis, they're going to see a decrease in their bill of roughly $10.
Okay.
If they use more, they'll see more of a decrease. And if they use less, a little bit less than that, that's going to equate to about a 7% reduction in the bill based
Okay.
on that 1,000 kilowatts of usage.
So tell me the difference. You said the PPA is coming down 30%, but it will translate to about a 7% reduction in my bill. There's
That is-
another component to the bill, correct?
That is correct. Again, the PPA is a surcharge. So people are paying a couple of different things. Number one, they pay a facility charge, which is a flat charge for residents. It's like $14 a month. It's a metering charge. And then the second thing they pay is a demand charge. Some folks pay that, some don't. It just depends upon where your peak demand falls. And then the last thing you pay is a per kilowatt hour base rate. So that's the primary billing structure. And then in times of inflationary increases or decreases for that matter, we
Sure.
would institute the PPA.
Gotcha.
So there's a little bit more obviously to your bill than just the PPA.
Yeah. So those other charges basically cover the initial cost of buying the electricity and all those expenses of employees and administration and everything else it takes to bring the electric to their house and to make it reliable on a daily, monthly, yearly, recurring basis, right?
That is correct.
Gotcha. So again, we're really pleased with the fact that yes, it was very difficult, and we know that it was a burden on the consumer to have to absorb that higher rate. We're also very pleased now that knowing that those gas prices have come down, we've been able to institute a 30% decrease to that purchase power adjustment. And obviously, Chris, you'll continue to watch really closely, and if, for instance, those rates continue to be stable or go down or stay down for a longer period, there's still some chances that could go down further, isn't there?
That's correct. That
Okay.
is the purchase power is our single largest cost that we incur with regards to providing electricity. So obviously, if that cost continues to decrease, then we could potentially back off of that PPA some more.
Yeah, and the key that people should understand, a municipal electric utility like we have in Kings Mountain, the only reason we operate it as opposed to the investor-owned utility like a Duke Energy is so that we can provide hopefully more reliable, more consistent power at a lower cost. Because honestly, the city does not have to provide the kind of return on investment that shareholders need in the private sector. So really what we're looking for is reinvesting in the system to make certain that it stays reliable, that it can be reliable over time, making certain that there's adequate fund balance over time, and then ultimately simply covering the costs. Is that correct?
That is correct. A couple of advantages there. Obviously, we're not paying income taxes either, so we should be able to provide the service at a very, very competitive rate, if not a rate that's a little lower. We don't necessarily get the economies of scale, but we have some other benefits
Exactly.
that allow us to be competitive.
So we know that it's very hard to deal with those rates when they go up, but we assure you that at the city we're very cognizant when that happens. We're doing everything in our power to not only keep those rates down, but whenever there is some possibility, again, to either keep them in place longer or to decrease them, that's what we're going to do. Because the goal is, again, the power of local, KM Energy, the idea that you, as a city resident, own this utility. It's there for your benefit. It's there only to provide you effective, consistent, reliable, low-cost power. And if we're not doing that, then you need to tell us about it.